All right, time for another DraftPhysics.com, debatephysics.com also, but the debate is just terrible. Yeah, I mean, people just won't make anything like an argument countering my arguments in any way, showing any evidence, demonstrating that what they argue or defend is the truth. So, conventional physics, period, claims that it takes 5 times the, if you apply 5 times the fuel, you'll get 25 times the energy out because you'll increase the velocity by 5 times. So that's their claim, is that 5 times the velocity requires 25 times the fuel and produces 25 times the energy, the capacity to do work out. It's their direct, overt assertion that it's true, and there's no evidence defending it. And you don't land on the moon with that kind of reasoning and logic. Fact. And yet, that's their physics. And all of their particle physics is based on this silly idea of 1/2 mv squared being the definition of something called energy in the universe, when energy in the universe is just mass moving a velocity, not a velocity squared, just a velocity. The mass is just as important as how fast the mass is moving. Simple argument, so they should be able to show the evidence they have compiled to prove the fact that 5 times the velocity is 5 times the energy. 25 times the energy. It's just so silly. You can't even, my brain doesn't even want to say things that are so stupid and that they assert as being absolute truth. So anyway, we're on to vertical motion. So this is just, I'm not going to draw gravity again, at least not now. Maybe later. Later I'll do some comments because they're just so bad. Anyway, so I've already explained how gravity works. In the first unit of time, you're now going exactly, if you're going to go 2 seconds, you're going to move 4 units of 4.9 in distance. And this fact is, in the first second, going only 1/4 of the distance, you're already going half the velocity. In the next 3 units of distance, you only gain 1 unit of extra velocity, 1 unit of 9.8 meters per second, which is 2 units of distance, at that velocity. This acceleration is half, you got to think when you're accelerating, you're going from 0 to the absolute, half of that would be your average speed. Meaning that's how fast you were really going, in terms of how much distance you covered. And so that's why there's a half in the equation. But anyway, let's play the dopey video where he's going to explain how, let's see if he uses energy in here somewhere.
We have familiarized ourselves with position, velocity, and acceleration, as well as the kinematic equations that govern the relationship between these parameters.
Right, and there's nothing intrinsically wrong with any of these, in the sense that the 1/2 at squared here is just representing, the fact that your acceleration, your rate of acceleration, 9.8, means, in Earth's gravity, in 1 second you only go 1/2 that distance. That's all that means. And the squared time just means that, yes, you quadratically increase the amount of distance you cover, but you're not quadratically increasing your energy, because you're only, twice the force, twice the velocity, as Newton said. 3 times the force, 3 times your velocity, as Newton said.
We also saw how we can apply these to simple horizontal motion, and things will be essentially the same when looking at vertical motion. The only difference is that when examining strictly vertical motion, the acceleration will be the acceleration due to Earth's gravity, which is a constant. negative 9.8 meters per second squared.
So kind of silly, negative numbers and all that. So as pointed out in the previous video, he was using a car example where it had a constant acceleration, which is really difficult to do. So he had basically just turned it into a gravitational equation because he created an artificial acceleration that we don't encounter in reality.
This value is unique to the Earth since the Earth has a particular mass and radius.
And you're doing it per unit of time. You're measuring that particular measurement in 1 unit of second. So he has seconds squared here again. You can't see it. There's little X's over it. But again, it's not 9.8 meters per seconds or per any second squared. It's 9.8 meters per 1 second. And see, it's 9.8 times 1 meter. So they just don't put the 1 in, but it's 1 meter. Okay. And divided by 1 second. Those are the real units. That's what these units mean, is a 1. That's that's what they signify. And there's no squared 1. You don't square a 1. 1 times 1 is 1.
This value would be different if we were on some other moon or planet.
The interesting fact is that Jupiter, for example, does have a significant gravity because it has a significant density at its surface compared to, say, the Sun. And so you could, in fact, use something like Jupiter, and you might have, I think, it's like half the surface gravity of the Sun. It's a pretty significant gravity. The Sun is it's pretty deceptive because at the surface, whatever you call that, of the Sun, it's only 80 times the gravity of the Earth. So even though the Sun is 1,000,000 times bigger, the surface gravity is only 80 times more.
But we humans tend to spend most of our time here on Earth, so we can just associate acceleration due to gravity with this value unless otherwise specified.
So just saying that for the few miles of thickness of atmosphere, you're not going to be able to really tell the difference in the gravity from a mile up to the ground itself. It's still going to be pretty much the same velocity added per unit of 1 second. 1 second. 1 second.
Also, with horizontal motion, it is arbitrary which direction we regard as positive or negative, though we often assign the positive direction.
Well, this is also arbitrary, frankly. Up and down is also arbitrary.
To the right by convention. But with vertical motion, the negative direction will always be down towards Earth, and objects will always accelerate towards the Earth, since that is the main source of gravity we experience every day.
So, and gravity is just a condition that exists, okay? So there's this mechanism. I argue that it's a real force, differential. So there's more stuff pushing from above than is pushing from below, and the differential is this 9.8 that any mass will experience.
We can examine objects that are in free fall, which means they were dropped downwards from a standstill. Or we can look at objects that have some initial upward velocity. Either way, acceleration will always be negative 9.8 meters per second squared when on Earth. Let's say, for example,
Bullshit. Negative.
you drop a rock off a 100-meter tall cliff. How long will it take to hit the ground, and how fast will it be traveling when it lands?
Right, so those are the two simple questions. The more difficult question is how much will it weigh? So what will its impact weight? So what will its impact energy be? That's the one they screw up because they think distance is energy. So they think every single time you go 4.9 meters that somehow the force gave you 1 unit of energy. So you're going twice the velocity, but you went 4 times the distance, therefore you have 4 times the energy. But you're only going twice the velocity. And you only took 2 seconds. You only got 2 units of 9.8. meters per second increase in your velocity. So you're only going 19.6 when you hit the ground. And again, it's you were going half your speed, 1/4 of the fall, not halfway through the fall, which is the huge giveaway. You're going half your speed way up here, which just sort of indicates, okay, this isn't linear. You don't get a unit of power per unit of distance. You get units of power, energy, by units of time.
To answer this, we will need the equation regarding position, because we know that the rock must travel 100 meters in the negative direction. We can plug in -100 here.
So it's
For the initial velocity, that will be
not going to be very exciting again. This is exactly the same math he did for the car, so he hasn't changed anything because he created that special circumstance of the car accelerating at a constant rate, just like a gravitational force, which is hard to duplicate in a car.
0, because when you drop the rock, it is from a complete standstill.
And so that's only how these equations work, is from a 0 start, because if you give it a initial velocity, okay, this mgh doesn't work. Height won't matter. Height won't tell you the truth. Time will tell you the truth.
Once you let go, does gravity cause the rock to accelerate towards the ground. So this whole term can be ignored.
So exactly the same as the car example in the previous video.
Now we plug in the acceleration due to gravity and solve for t. Notice that the negative signs on position and acceleration values will cancel out to give a positive value for time. This is very important, as we have to be careful with signs as we do arithmetic, and this will be a common opportunity for error with many students. And we get around 4.5.
Oh yeah, like they would come up with minus 4.5 seconds.
Seconds for the time elapsed during freefall. Now if we want to know how fast it is going when it hits the ground, we can use this equation to solve for velocity.
Right, and if you use this to solve for how fast it's going, 1/4 of its voyage, you'll find out it's going half its speed. Because it's all time dependent. The time is all that matters.
Again, initial velocity is 0, and we have negative
units of time will be units of velocity added to your velocity.
9.8 meters per second times 4.
So there is no per second. It's again just baby talk. There's no such notion. You don't put it into the equation. We already know that anything can happen more than one time. So you don't square the seconds, presuming that somebody doesn't know that, oh, it could be 10 seconds or it could be 20 seconds. That's a separate thing you do. You're saying this is the 9.8 meters per 1 second. That's what Newton said. That's what Galileo, this is what they discovered. It happens in 1 second units. It doesn't happen in second squared units. It's just nonsense. And then you multiply it by the 4.5. So you don't have a squared second here and then multiply it times seconds. That's nonsense.
5 seconds, which gives us negative 44.1 meters per second at the time of impact.
So, and that's the bogus part. How can it possibly do that with a second squared in the bottom of the fraction? But whatever.
This value is negative because velocity is a vector, and the object is traveling in the negative direction. Now let's say that we take another rock, and this time we throw the rock straight up in the air with an initial velocity of 10 meters per second. This velocity will immediately begin to decrease because of the negative acceleration due to Earth's gravity.
So this is just putting the brakes on kind of example. It's not, it's a little different, but it's the same idea. You're going to apply a deceleration before you accelerate in the negative direction.
The moment it leaves your hand, the velocity will decrease until it becomes 0, and then grows in the negative direction. This means it will travel upwards for some amount of time before falling back down to the bottom where the other rock landed.
Right, so its falling time is going to be longer, so all those numbers will be a little bigger, and the fact is it's still going to be 1/4 of its distance will be half of its velocity.
How long will this rock be traveling before it lands? Well,
It's always 1/3. You can always use that 1/3 thing. So you can always take a whole distance that might be multiple seconds, and you can still always just cut it into 1/3.
Let's do the same calculation that we did before. The only difference here is that instead of an initial velocity of 0, we have an initial velocity of 10 meters per second in the positive direction, or upwards, and the usual acceleration, which again will be downwards and therefore negative. We plug in negative 100 meters for the displacement, remembering that even though the distance this rock will travel is greater than the other one, both rocks start and end in the same place. Then we plug in the other numbers. What we are left with is a little trickier than before because we have both a t and t squared term. This means that we will have to use the quadratic equation. If you have forgotten this,
Yeah, whatever. You've made a mess is a simple answer, but whatever. It's this little second squared that's the thing that's just too stupid.
from algebra class, here it is, as it applies to an equation in ax squared plus bx plus c form. We simply take the coefficients of the equation and plug them into this expression, and we will get two answers as possible values for x. So we have to take our equation and rearrange it to look like...
I don't know, you still have the same argument. You could just take it as a distance, and you know distance is related to time quadratically, or you could just measure the time. So I don't know why this is an issue, but whatever.
The standard form, which involves adding 100 to both sides. There's our a, b, and c. If we plug those in, we get the two values for x, but the positive answer is the one we are looking for.
Yeah, obviously. So we had 4.5 before, so now it's 5.65 because obviously you were in the gravity a longer period of time, therefore you collected more acceleration.
As it doesn't make sense to discuss negative quantities of time. So we can conclude that it takes 5.65 seconds for this rock to hit the ground, a little over a second longer than the one we simply dropped. How fast will this one be traveling at the point of impact? Let's use this equation again. This time we have to use 10 meters per second as the initial velocity, and then we plug in our acceleration and the time we just calculated. This will give us negative 45.4 meters per second at the time of impact, a little more than the other rock because it fell from a slightly higher position, the peak of its trajectory.
So unfortunately, yes, there's nothing about energy in here or weight.
So we can see that motion in the vertical direction utilizes the same equations and concepts as horizontal motion, except that the acceleration will always be due to gravity, which is held constant at this value.
And your examples of other accelerations were also held constant. So again, it really just doesn't make any difference, and you weren't counting friction. So you were just doing the same crap, you know, in different directions.
Let's check comprehension.
No, let's not. Okay. So that wasn't very interesting, unfortunately. But, you know, you get what you get. I mean, you know, can't, you know, I'm not going to watch them ahead of time. You know, yeah, I'm not going to bother. All right, so we'll do some comments. Alright, back. Comments. Alright, the difference between Dave and you is Dave represents the generally valid knowledge of all mankind. So it's not possible they made mistakes. And I mean, you don't have to do much research. I'm just saying. So you could do the tiny amount of research of just looking up who Leibniz was, looking up Descartes, looking up what science was saying in 1730 about the concept of energy, and they were quite factually confused because the assertion of mv squared is in direct conflict with what levers say what energy equals what energy. And the fact is, there's no good evidence. So again, you want to just keep arguing, go ahead. You're just proving my point that humans are scum. They have no integrity. So even when they pretend to give a shit about science, have some sort of knowledge or information, they're just going to defend their religion, just like the religious kooks. They're just duplicitous hypocrites. They don't want faith-based bullshit, as a something to live by and accept theirs. If it's an issue of their faith, then okay, it's a good religion. But that's all it is a religion, a dogma. You don't have any evidence. Nobody can link in any of these comments. They can't link to any evidence that it takes 25 times the fuel to move something 5 times as fast. Because it doesn't happen. They don't have any evidence that, living force calculations landed mankind on the moon. You're the one doing science the disservice, asshole. While you show us your, I know it all better ego trip. So again, there's no ego trip. There's an argument about reality. And I think it's important that the truth win and the facts win. And that, you have a fair trial of reality. And you're not participating in a fair trial. Trials are about evidence, and you're not showing any. You weaselly pile of scum. So I just remove it, but, garbage. Alright, I lost brain cells skipping through this BS. Well, that's just so important. Like I could care. Soda account, he calls himself. Gee, I am so impressed that asshole troll on the internet says. No, I'm not that impressed. I stumbled on this video, unfortunately. Yes, well, it's just so tragic that the internet should once in a while provide you some counter-argument. Oh, dear. That would be just horrible. I'm not sure if you've ever driven a car. It's just a waste of time. To use your example, when a speedometer indicates 60 miles an hour, it's telling you that if your current velocity remains constant for 1 hour, you will be traveling a distance of 60 miles. Yes, and you don't say per hour per hour. So even though you could travel more than an hour, or you could travel less than an hour, you don't say any of that crap. Just, why do you say it for an acceleration? Why do you assume how long your acceleration is when you don't assume how long your trip is? Even after driving for 4 hours, you will still only be traveling 60 miles an hour. Duh. Because those are units imply a constant velocity. No, the units imply that when they say miles per hour, it's 1 mile per 1 hour. That's the unit. However, gravity imports an acceleration, which is why the units of distance is squared. So that doesn't make any sense. Why would the units of distance be squared, okay, when you're talking about the seconds being squared? Asshole. Okay. Shit. You're not even on the subject. The meters weren't squared, the seconds were squared. All right, 9.8 meters per second. So again, you're saying it again as if that makes any sense to anybody, being fair. Why would it be 9.8 meters per second? Newton didn't say that. Galileo didn't say that. They didn't even think that. They knew it could be any number of seconds. They were telling you what the rate was. The rate is 9.8 to 1 second. That's the rate. Fuck. You multiply that by 2 or 10 or 17.6. So you measure how much time it takes, and there's that many number of those things in that number of time. Those are the things you multiply. You don't multiply a second times a second. You don't multiply 1 second times 1 second. Too ridiculous. After 1 second, you have traveled 9.8 meters per second. After 1 second, you will be traveling 9.8 meters per second. Yes. And after 2 seconds, it's 2 units of that. So where's the square come in? But if you checked your speedometer after 2 seconds, that is no longer true. Yeah, well, we know your speedometer is going to read the net acceleration. So I don't know what you're talking about. It's not going to be true. At that moment, you're traveling 19.6. Yeah, 2 units of 9.8. Well, fuck you. I mean, this is so ridiculously useless. Where are you showing it takes 25 times the fuel to go 5 times as fast? Are you showing that somewhere in here? No, you're not. So you will travel twice as far as you did for the first, second, and so on. And it won't be twice as far. It'll be 3 times as far. So you didn't even get that right. The first unit of distance, the first second, you travel this far. The second, you travel 3 of those. The 9.8 of free velocity plus the extra 4.9 of distance you're going to get from your second unit of 9.8. So it's 1, 2, 3, asshole. And so on. So you're wrong. So I just proved you wrong, fuckhead. So you all block. Fuck you. I don't have to take this shit from you fucking weasels. Alright. I really hate this fucking bot answering the comments. It's just so bullshit. I mean, everybody's just going to get turned into this crap where everybody's just using this cliche response rhetoric. That sounds great, but it's wrong, and this is that, but you know, just all this it's just rhetoric. Alright, for the next video, you can please present an analysis of the following problem. Fuck you. Okay, a sphere of mass m moving with a speed v collides with a sphere of mass m at rest. So a mass of the same mass hits a mass of the same mass, hits another mass with the same mass. We already know what's going to happen if it's elastic. You know, we just transfer the energy. So we don't create any free momentum. But if we make it heavier, we'll have free momentum going in a direction. And if we make it lighter, we'll have less. Okay. What are the velocities of the two spheres? Fuck you. Fuck you. This is just too fucking stupid. I mean, we've been over this crap so many times. Why don't you go analyze a Newton's cradle with a 1-to-3 mass ratio and see if you can make sense out of the free momentum you're going to create, you fucking weasel. Oh, god damn it. So again, the real issue, look, does it seem all that difficult? You claim for 350 years, your Leibnizian physics, mv squared, that 5 times the fuel is 25 times the energy. I mean, 5 times the fuel produces, to go 5 times as fast, you need 25 times the fuel. Or if you're going 5 times as fast, it produces 25 times the energy output. You have to show any evidence that that's true, and this is all over. That's when you win the argument, is when you present a piece of evidence. Now the fact is, the Mythbusters crashed 2 cars, same cars, 50 miles an hour, 100 miles an hour, right into a brick wall, a steel wall. And they crushed completely consistent with momentum. No evidence of mv squared at all. No evidence of anything like anything more than twice the damage to the car. 100 miles an hour, twice the energy, not 4 times the energy. And if they would have done a 1-to-3 ratio of velocity, then you'd have to find this 9 times. And if it was 1-to-4, you'd have to find 16 times the damage. And, you know, 5 times the velocity, 10 miles an hour versus 50 miles an hour, you have to show 25 times, not 5 times, 25 times the damage to the car. That's the evidence you have to show me. And in 350 years, you should have some fucking evidence. Or show me a competition between a 5 mass going 10 and a 10 mass going 5, and show the tug of war, and show that the 5 mass has twice as much energy. But you don't do any of that. You cowards. So this is a religious kook. His icon is some sort of essentials of God or something. So that's an insta-block. Alright. Hey, so this is an honest question, and it's going to sound quite cutting. Oh, jeez. Like your incomprehensible icon? Okay, why should people listen to you and not Professor Dave? People should listen to arguments and evaluate arguments. That's all they should do. They should be seeking the truth, and they shouldn't assume somebody because somebody tells them it's the truth, it's the truth. They should be able to show them it's the truth. So where have you seen evidence of mv squared being accurate, being true? Where have you seen evidence of 5 times the fuel producing 25 times... Oh, why do I keep doing this? Saying it backwards. Where 5 times the velocity produces 25 times the work. Where have you shown anything? Where have you been shown any of that? Do you have any qualifications that we should be aware of? Well, yeah, I've been on Earth a long time, and obviously, as I've pointed out, I've had lots of jobs. I worked in a machine shop. I've done, electronics work. I've done a lot of different things that have physics in them, asshole. All right. Right now it's sounding like, trust me, bro. Oh, amazing. I'm doing exactly the opposite. That's what the little simulated stuff in the background is. It's part of a simulation of charge. Okay, an actual demonstration of how very simple rules can produce the exact function of electrons and protons. I'm the one producing, evidence in this trial. You're the people producing nothing. Okay, but your assertion, your dogmatic religious assertions. All right. So this guy is a modern day delight. Yeah, we'll just call that a delight. I'm a modern day delight. He misunderstands simple high school physics concepts. I misunderstand any idea that we should believe without seeing it. Okay, that you don't need evidence to believe. And so what's your experimental evidence? What experimental evidence do you rely on to be confident that this mv squared thing is a good idea, that it really represents reality? That in spite of what Newton said, twice the force, twice the velocity, 3 times the force, 3 times the velocity, you think something else is true. Why do you believe that? Well, you won't answer the question because you're a lying weasel. All right. Clueless, irrelevant host spews ignorance. So this is on the Veritasium. So Veritasium talks some speculation about any reasoning that we should believe there is life because there's water on Europa. Therefore, there's this great possibility that it created life. That somehow we have real evidence that any time you have a bucket of water in space, a living thing's going to pop out of it. Amazing. Ugh, you're all just such dupes. Alright, it's where to find somebody scientifically illiterate as you commenting on science. So my illiteracy is I actually have read Leibniz. Okay, you haven't. Do you have any understanding of what he used as evidence? He just claimed that 4 pounds dropped 1 foot is the same energy as 1 pound dropped 4 feet. He didn't do the experiment. I'm just saying, where have you seen the experiment? Where have you seen that proven, that those are the same impact energies? Oh, that's right. You haven't. You're just a shit talker. Let's see. This is just some other side nonsense. I wish somebody could interview DraftScience. He seems angry and cynical. Must have a sensitive side. Fuck you. I mean, look at all this mush they typed to that. He's super nice. Fuck you in the ass. Let's see. McToon sacrificed himself to have a debate with him, but unfortunately this draft guy wasn't capable, and it ended in a fit of aggression. No, what happened was I asked simple questions and he completely evaded them and did a mathematical formula instead of answering a single one of the points. So he didn't show us why levers are wrong. He didn't explain how you land on the moon. He didn't explain how thrust works. He said, he actually said that the rocket thrust is equal. The kinetic energy of the thrust equals the kinetic energy of the rocket. So he said something really stupid and ignorant, because no, that only works for momentum. So your people are just such lying little turds. All right, so we'll just kill this thread. Crap. Okay, let's see. So that's the Chris Logan thing. Who cares? So here's this little. These people can't stay on the subject or provide any evidence. After his defeat by Kirk, I was wondering where Khan was going with this. However, scalar basically means single value. So what you're going to, they overtly make a statement that speed and velocity are different things, and that somehow speed doesn't have a direction. So you can be speeding in no direction. That's overtly what they say. Instead of answering that, you pretend, oh, well, there's some other special definition, single value. So scalar doesn't mean no direction. It just means single value, whatever the fuck that is. I mean, it's just such bullshit. So not sure why your tone was necessary. My tone is necessary because it's just imbecilic to say you can have speed without a direction. In this physical universe, there's no such thing as speed without a direction. The kinetic energy of a train is exactly as directional as its momentum. You can't make up some story that it has kinetic energy in something other than exactly the same direction as its momentum. Perhaps closed-minded on my side. Yes, apparently retarded-minded. But it was enough for me not to continue this video. Well, there's a read more button here, so I guess I won't bother. So yeah, touche, fucker. Oh, god damn. Let's see, you absolutely suck. Well, that's useless tripe. And the LMAOO thing, I can live without that kind of crap too. Alright, oh, what the fuck? just so bad. Anyway, I guess we'll call that a video. So there's just no count. Again, the whole argument's over. All they have to do is show one single shred of evidence that something spinning 5 times as fast or something moving 5 times as fast required 25 times the fuel to do that, or produces 25 times the work as a product. That it does in fact have 25 times the energy. That there is in fact some real idea that it's 1/2 mv squared equals energy versus momentum, mv equals energy. They have nothing except arrogance and belligerent stupidity. Maybe it's belligerent ignorance and perpetual obnoxious stupidity. But anyway, till the next time and such and so forth and whatnot. Quite depressing life on a planet full of lying scum.